What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Lexi J Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Lexi Johnson. This is my husband and co-host, Brett Johnson. Guys, this is kind of ironic that the topic that we were presented with, someone had sent us an email and they were asking a lot about routines, morning routines, evening routines. She said that her life and schedule is going to dramatically change at the start of the new year. And I think a lot of other people's, whether, out of obligation or just voluntarily, they're going to start to, hopefully pick up some new habits at the new year. This would be a relatable topic. However, right now, our routine is so wrecked. Our routine is way off. And as two people that are such creatures of habit, it's a weird phase to navigate. But if you guys didn't know, Brett and I we're like split custody right now. We are in between phases where we sold our house that we're building is not quite ready, hopefully, in the next like six or 7 weeks, hopefully. But in the interim, he has to work in the office, and I obviously can work remotely. So we're fortunate enough to have Brett's parents. They have a lake house that we can live at. Like myself, the dogs, and I, we can have some sense of normalcy as far as like we have our own space. We're not, infiltrating someone else's life and house. But Brett isn't here throughout the week, so that's really tough. And then it throws him into a crazy routine because he's living in someone else's house part-time and then coming down here, driving like 4 hours, to spend the weekends with us, and then just kind of having to restart that routine. So it's ironic that we're talking about routine, but it is something that's super important to us. Mm-hmm. And we're just trying to clinging on to it for dear life right now.
Right. Just puts a spotlight on how important routines are to us. Because it sucks right now, not having just a really dependable schedule.
Yeah, it's so weird. And we went from, just being completely, it's not that we can't operate outside of it, but I just would prefer to. So that's another thing that I think that we for sure want to touch on, or I want to touch on, is that you'll see a lot of stuff. Like I see a lot of stuff in the self-development and the fitness world on social media as far as if you're not cold plunging, visualizing, doing a sauna, meditation, 12 gratitude points, praying, journaling, all of these things before 6 a.m., then how is your day going to be set up for success? And there's a lot going on there. And I think that people put it in those terms. I mean, I know why they put it in those terms. It's in order, if you don't stand on a really hard conviction when you're posting something like that, that's the point, is to put a very, very contrasted statement where people are either going to really, really agree or really disagree. I mean, they're just trying to get the algorithm to give them some attention. But that's not the case. You don't have to have a 14-step morning routine in order to have a successful day or whatever. But personally, I like to put the odds in my favor starting my day, and it's super helpful for me just to take care of me and take care of what I need to get done personally, before I start taking care of everyone else. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people may hear that and it may sound selfish, but I think that, I've tried it both ways, and I don't do nearly as much good for anybody else if I'm not taking care of myself first. So that's kind of the importance and the rooted why of my morning routine. And if you're someone that struggles with a morning routine, I think that asking yourself why you want one in the first place. Is it because you feel like you're leaving a lot on the table at work? Is it because you feel like you're getting run ragged with kids throughout the day and this is the only time that's for you? And if that's the case, then we have to carve that time and make it very sacred, because the rest of your day is going to be ran by someone else.
Yep. So the way I view it in my life is I like to start my day and kind of gain some momentum. It helps whenever I start out my morning on my terms, and I do X, Y, and Z. We can go into a little bit more detail of what we do, how early we get up in a second. But I really think that the gist of it is that you're creating momentum. And whenever you start up and you do things on your own terms and you get the things accomplished that you want to get accomplished, then you don't feel like you're playing catch up or you're playing from behind or you've missed certain things that you wanted to do. and then you feel like you have to crunch it in, during the day or later in the day, whenever you have other things, other obligations, other necessities, to take care of. And that's why I get up very early, and it still is hard to get everything in that I want to get in, without just racing around. But the whole point of it is for the individual to feel like they're in a better spot than they were. It helps provide some comfort. It helps provide some clarity of mind, and it puts you in a better spot, in your life. So what we do isn't necessarily what you should do, and what you do isn't necessarily what we should do. Really, it just needs to conform to your goals.
Yeah, it's certainly up to personal preference, and like yours is momentum building. Mine, I feel like, is out of control. Just because I have a tendency to feel pretty anxious and overwhelmed if the day doesn't start on my own terms. Like there have been instances, when I woke up and I had forgotten to schedule a workout or something, and that's my job. Like that's a big part of it. There are, a lot of people counting on that workout to be up on the website so they can start their day that way, because that's part of their routine. And like if that fight or flight is like the first thing that starts my day, then my morning is kind of like catastrophic. It's just my heart's racing. I'm in that fight or flight mindset. And then on the days, more often than not, when I can start it, I'm drinking my coffee, I'm reading my book. It feels so much better. It feels like I have a little bit more control. And then, just like you had mentioned, starting it on your own terms and putting yourself in the best position possible, because there's a lot of stuff that happens throughout your day that you really don't have much say over. And there are a few things that you do have control over. It's your attitude, your actions. And really, if you're just leaving it up to chance of, whatever happens at first thing in the morning, then I don't know about you guys, but like my default settings are not typically overly positive. They're not going to be just, super optimistic or anything. If I'm not putting myself in that position to have a good day and to, give myself a fighting chance to really get some sense of control before the duties of my day and my work life kick in, then chances are good that I'm going to be pretty stressed or anxious throughout the day.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly there. I think it does put me in a really positive mindset most of the time. I mean, every day is different, and every day presents different problems and distractions. I mean, that's one of the best parts about getting up early for me, is that there's less distractions.
Can I interrupt really quick when
Yep.
you had said something about every day is going to have problems? This is something that Mike and I were recently talking about. Maiken, if you guys aren't aware, she's one of my employees. She works for Lexi Wellness. She's a bomb. She's awesome. So we had talked about this, and I had heard this term in a different podcast, and it's the veteran state of mind. So we had talked about something in our work life that like constantly made us overwhelmed or anxious every single week. Like Monday morning, Tuesday morning, we would feel overwhelmed and stressed by this. And it would happen every single week. And we were talking about it recently because she was getting ready. Libby is coming onto our team. She's coming off maternity leave, and she's getting ready to start. So Mike and I were like preparing, just kind of, a run through of, hey, here's a day to day, what you can expect, whatever. And Mike and I were like laughing back and forth just because this was something that plagued us every single week. We would be calling or texting each other, overwhelmed and stressed and anxious about this exact same thing that happened every single week, like clockwork. And if you get overwhelmed by the exact same thing every single day or every single week that you know is going to be there next week or you know is going to be there the next day, that is such a waste of of energy and resources. So in the podcast, when he had called it the veteran state of mind, he said, if you sit in 30 minutes of traffic on your way home from work, and that's a day-to-day thing, like you're going to hit rush hour, and that's just part of your day, but you allow it to stress you out to the point where it overwhelms you, it ruins your mood or whatever, but it's going to be there. Like that's part of your day. What would you expect? Everyone else to just not commute one day and you'd be surprised? If that happened, then that'd be awesome. But you have to understand that there's never going to be a day that is completely stress-free, that's completely problem-free. Mm-hmm. That's part of being an adult. That's part of navigating life.
Yeah.
And being aware, and like if you have kind of routine problems or stressors throughout your day or throughout your work life that you know is going to be there the next day, you know you can expect them at the start of every month or whatever, then you can go into it with a veteran state of mind, and you know that's part of your day. But with that awareness, you're capable to you're able to tackle it, and not just ruin your mentality, like getting stressed over something that you know is going to be there.
Yeah. So do you think that being able to acknowledge that yourself, that you can prepare yourself and have a more positive frame of mind, knowing that there's going to be this thing, perpetually?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because otherwise, I mean, other shit's going to hit the fan that is going to stress you out, and then you're already so frazzled by the thing that you already expected.
It feels like it's piling on.
Yeah.
And really it's just one new problem instead of it being two problems.
Right. Yeah, it's and maybe reframing it as not a problem, but that's an obligation. That's part of your duties as a fill in the blank of whatever position you're in. Like if you are, I don't know, if you're a teacher and the day after Halloween is always complete madness, or the day of Halloween is always complete madness, and you allow yourself to be super stressed out, and like that's a really specific instance. I know that happens probably more often than not in teaching. There are, certain holidays or stretches of time where you can kind of expect the kids are going to be crazy, and you just allow yourself to be so frazzled by that, then I don't think you're giving yourself a fighting chance to really address it and handle it the way that it should be. Mm-hmm. I mean, every occupation has different deadlines and busy seasons and things like that. That's part of the job. That's the job that you were hired to do.
Right. It's not a surprise.
Yeah.
It's expected. And you know that going into it. So there's no reason to get extra stressed about it. And it's kind of the underlying point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But setting yourself up, at the first part of the day, that helps me get in the right mind frame. Just being able to, it really is. I said momentum and you said control, but control is like a probably a better way to put it, because I do crave control. Like that is in my nature, to control as much as I can. And that's something that I constantly am trying to evolve with a little bit and get better with, because I know very well that there are so many things that are out of my control. That has become the norm in my life. More and more, I realize how much is actually in my control. You just have to roll with the punches and, control what you can control and be prepared to handle the things that are out of your control. And the better, the more things you encounter through your life, the more equipped you are to handle those uncontrolled things that come your way. But point being, with the morning routine, I'll kind of go through what I do that helps me set my day up for success. Well, I'll go on like a normal day because right now, like Lexi said, our life's just kind of a shit show with like our schedule and living situation and me going back and forth. And it's just very abnormal.
We have like 4 different addresses. It's so crazy. We keep getting things shipped to the wrong address because at any given point we're going to be somewhere else, or we'll have mail forwarding from our last place, or it's just, there's a lot of unknowns. So it really makes you appreciate the things that, are certain and constant in your life.
Mm-hmm. So like on a normal work day, I'll typically get up at like 4:45. And we have, a fairly structured morning where have coffee, protein coffee, get that made, go in and read. Lexi and I read together. And after that, we work out. Typically, it would be in our own house, which it will be here before too long. And, Lexi's most likely recording workouts, and I'm working out in the background in our home gym. Right now, that's not the case, and it's strange because I have to go to a gym, which I'm not used to doing, so there's a little bit of travel time there. It's nice because I have some more equipment to work with, but I have to account for this travel time, so I get up even earlier than that now on a normal work day. But then after that, I just have breakfast, and then I had to work, and that whole process for me on like a normal day, that takes me about 3.5 hours to get accomplished. 3.5, 4 hours.
To be fair, he gets up that early because he likes his morning nice and slow. Like, you're very pokey when it comes to making coffee and getting the dogs taken care of,
Right.
and reading and visualizing. Like, you're very, very pokey.
I mean, it's all very sequential, but yes, I'm not sprinting from one thing to the next by any means. So it's nice. I don't want to have to run from one thing to the next.
I'm the same
because
way. I would rather wake up earlier in order to have it nice and slow.
Right. I don't want to put myself in a fight or flight stage immediately. Otherwise, that's just going to put me in a highly anxious state.
For sure. I just wanted to explain that because I know people are listening. They're like 3.5 hours.
Yeah. But I mean, I work out for 45 minutes, and I may drink pre-workout beforehand, and it choke it down in 15 minutes. I'm most of the time not just racing around, and that's also a benefit of not having children. We have dogs that I take care of, but by no means is that a kid. But if you have a kid or kids, then you may have to get up even earlier before they get up. You just have to structure things around whatever your routines are and make it work. But that, just to give you guys a little bit of a magnifying glass on our life, that's my typical morning. Now, like we were describing, it's just kind of a little bit of everywhere right now, but that's an ideal morning for me.
Yeah. I mean, my morning is very similar. I wake up probably like 10 to 15 minutes after Brett when we're together, because Brett's really sweet and he gets the coffee going and he takes care of the dogs. Like, he'll let the dogs out and feed them. So he lets me sleep in like 15 minutes later, because I mean, I start in, again, our typical routine. I'll start recording workouts when he's working out. So that's our quote unquote quality time. But like, that's kind of like, that's my first work obligation for the day. So that could start at, 5:30 or 6 a.m. And that's kind of atypical. But it's important for me. And again, like, I could sleep a little bit later, but that's a priority of mine in order to, one, I like having that jump on the day, because then I don't need to, I won't be in contact with my team or anything like that until a typical work day begins. But I like having that time with Brett and that quality time earlier. So my morning's pretty similar. Wake up, we'll have protein coffee while we're reading our book. Or reading our books separately. It's not like a read aloud. Just kind of, it's like parallel play. We're just like together but separate, And Brett visualizes. He's very routine about that. I have been, until we moved to the lake, because the lake does not get, oddly enough, the shower does not get super, super cold. But I had been keeping, first thing when I woke up, a 5-minute cold shower in my routine. But the coldest that the faucets go here, honestly, is not very cold. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like strange, a pain.
I don't know why. That
I just like get undressed and then redressed. So I should get back to that. But this cold is not really a cold shower. So it would be more of just like a wake up call.
Yeah.
But
it's not a very harsh cold. It's like cool, but it's not like you're like, okay, this is cold.
I'm waiting to get the balls to jump in the lake.
That'd be cold.
But the more I wait, then the colder it's going to be.
Yeah. So one of the other questions that was asked here was, what are your tips for waking up early?
So this is something I'm passionate about, truly. And whether there are different strokes for different folks. So if you prefer to work out in the evening and you prefer all of that, that's totally fine. And again, that's going to be personal preference. But I was someone that was of the belief you were either a morning person or you were not. And I did not think I was a morning person whatsoever. Like in college, I had a 9 a.m. and you would have thought like that could have been 4 a.m. No difference to me, pretty much. It was just unheard of that I would have to get up at 8 a.m. and walk across campus, whatever.
Yeah, God forbid you had an 8 a.m. class.
Yeah. Oh, it just wouldn't go. In the middle of the night? Are you kidding? Who's holding in class at that time? So it's so funny because now I'm an early bird. I love that so much. So it's possible. You can become a morning person. One, like I had mentioned earlier, you have to want it bad enough. You have to have a why. If you have a strong enough why, the hows will take care of themselves. So if you really want to lead by example for your family and you want to be in the best shape possible, if you want to be the healthiest, happiest version of yourself in order to, get your mental health in check, all those things, those are really, really great reasons for you to get uncomfortable and start waking up earlier. That being said, there is a psychology and like a breakdown. You just have to know the nuts and bolts of a habit. And once you understand that, you can kind of hack your way into becoming, doing really any habit. But in this case, getting up early. And then it's only a matter of repetition before you start basically rewiring your brain. So the reason that it's probably so hard for you to wake up right now is because you just haven't done it enough. And that's normal because until you've repeated the same action enough times, then anything's going to be uncomfortable because you just haven't built up that confidence yet. So the nuts and bolts of a habit, it's basically a 3-parter. You have a trigger or a cue, so something that like initiates that thing to start. You have the habit itself that you want to, create or become habitual. And then you need a reward. So for instance, for me, waking up early, the trigger is my alarm going off. All right. That's my cue that the habit needs to start. And that means that I'm getting up. So when the alarm goes off, do not lay horizontal any longer. Just put your feet on the ground. If you can get your feet on the ground, you're going to start moving. It's much less likely that you'll lay back down. But the longer you stay horizontal, the easier it is to convince yourself. The longer you stay under the blankets, it's so easy to snooze. Put your feet on the ground. It's the simplest thing ever, but I promise, it'll work. So put your feet on the ground. That's your habit. You're getting out of bed. And then you start moving into your routine. You're going to be brushing your teeth, whatever. And you need some sort of reward, something to tell your brain this was worth it. And for me, that's protein coffee. I wasn't a coffee or really a protein person before. And thankfully this merged both of them. I genuinely wake up excited for that protein coffee every single day. I love it. Same. And that's my reward. And I'm like, it was worth it. Getting up, getting out of bed. So you need a cue or a trigger. Typically, if you're wanting to create a habit, your cue or trigger is going to be the alarm. That's probably pretty universal across the board. The habit is getting out of bed. I recommend you put your feet on the ground as soon as you hear that noise. That way you don't give yourself any option to talk yourself out. And then you have to have some sort of reward. And it's whatever you like, whatever makes it worth it to you. And that's going to look different on everyone. Just have something to trigger your brain and say, hey, this was worth it. We should repeat this again. And again, it's not going to be flawless every single day. And it's likely going to take several repetitions because what happens, like I had mentioned with you rewiring your brain, is that in order to establish and solidify a habit, it has to be repeated enough for your brain to kind of track the repetitions. So think about how often you have to go somewhere. Probably not very often because your phones are super, super smart. But if you go somewhere repeatedly and then you get in the car, your phone will be like, oh, are you headed to Price Chopper? Are you headed home? And it knows your habits, right? It's because you've repeated that action consistently that it can kind of pick up like, okay, this is what we're doing now. So if you do this consistently, your brain is going to be like, well, we're a morning person now because we've done it enough to show that.
Yeah. So for me, very, very comparable situation, but I am gonna give like a little plug here for Hatch. The Hatch alarm clocks are awesome.
They also have really good customer service.
They do. Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about them. And I'm sure a lot of moms out there are very familiar with them just because of their babies and, just having like a sound machine.
I didn't know if those were popular. I know your sisters have them.
I think they're very popular. Maybe I'm misled, but I know a lot of moms that have them. I know Leslie has one for
Quaid.
For Quaid. But I highly recommend it if you don't have one for your child. Now, I'm sure there's probably a lot of opinions on sound machines and whether or not a baby should have it, in their sleep routine or whatever. But I think that they can be very beneficial. And like my sister has it set up where it lights up green whenever the kids are like, it's time to get out of bed. So they're like, okay, green means go, it's good to get out of bed. We're supposed to sleep till X. And they just associate that with, okay, now it's time to get up. But anyway, the light helps a lot. So you're not getting up in pitch black, especially this time of year because the days are so short.
Super helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's pitch black. I mean, it's usually pitch black whenever I get up regardless, just because of how early it is. But this time of year especially, it's dark for quite some time before it gets light out. And especially before daylight savings time. So that's a big game changer for me, is just, I mean, I usually don't have a problem getting up anyway to my alarm, but the fact that I've got some sort of light shining, which is, a setting that you just edit on the hatch itself.
Gradually gets brighter.
Right.
So it's supposed to mimic like the sun rising, which helps
so
your circadian rhythm.
Yeah, it's supposed to not be such an abrupt wake up call. Like, it's supposed to kind of naturally wake you up. And I can attest to that actually working, because there's countless amount of times that I've woke up like 1 minute or 2 minutes before my alarm goes off, and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to get up. And that way I don't have to worry about it waking Lexi up. So that way, her additional 15 to 17 minutes, then she'll get that, and I don't have to worry about her waking up. Or, if my alarm does go off, then I have incentive, like, okay, I'm going to get up as fast as I can, because I don't want it to wake her up.
That's really sweet.
But
if you're looking, I think a hatch, this is just a plug that we have no association to the brand, but that would be an awesome thing to add to your Christmas list.
For sure.
If you're trying to.
Well worth the money.
Oh, for sure. And to speak to their customer service again, I think that it's incredibly important. Positive word of mouth is really, really, it's vital for businesses of any size, but people are way more likely to share a negative experience than they are positive. So I think it's important to right that ship. If you have a positive experience with a business, share it. So we had a hatch alarm, and we had like the initial one, and
like the first generation
or whatever. And Brett got an email from Hatch, and we didn't complain or didn't do anything. And basically this email said, hey, we saw you had the first generation Hatch, and we've been having complaints that there's malfunctions with that version. We're going to send you the newest version. And we didn't complain. We didn't reach out or anything. And
so just a spontaneous email. And then the next thing I know, I thought it was spam. Like, I legit thought it was spam, because I was like, no way.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a few days later in the mail, there it was. It was just the brand new generation, and totally unprompted.
Customer for life now.
Yeah. So, I mean, shameless plug. They make a great product, and that helps with our morning routine, no doubt. But that's hopefully a sufficient answer for that specific part of the question of how we, have established a morning routine. But truthfully, I don't think there's a person on this planet that is naturally a morning person. It goes against the grain to just naturally, instinctively, be a morning person. So whenever people say I'm not a morning person, frankly, I call bullshit. If I was a more abrasive person, I would just tell you to your face, like, no, you actually are. You're just unwilling to make a change. Does that make sense?
I think
Did I say that wrong?
Well, you said no one on the planet is a morning person, and then you are calling
naturally.
Okay.
Naturally,
so you're not calling bullshit. You're just calling them lazy.
Basically, yeah. Like, you're just you're just unwilling to make yourself a morning person. Yeah. Because now I've made myself a morning person, because it's a habit. It's just a habit I've created. I just think you're unwilling to make the change if you just say that I'm not a morning person and basically imply that I never will be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just that it's a fixed mindset, which is closed-minded.
Which that tells me all I need to know is, if you're unwilling to make yourself a morning person, you're probably unwilling to make a lot of other uncomfortable changes that will benefit you in a very positive way. Right.
I also think it's worth saying, again, I like to come at these things from the nerdy perspective. I had talked about your brain alteration of how habits are instilled, but there's also a lot of studies to support that your willpower is not an unlimited resource. And if you know anything, so a couple things here. One, your brain eats up 20% of the calories that you consume. So your brain exhausts calories, uses energy on decision making. And as you go throughout your day and you're making a ton of decisions and you're having all these conversations, you're using up these brain calories, and your brain is eating them away, making decisions, calling shots, having conversations throughout the day. And if you wait and wait and wait to do the thing that's uncomfortable, like exercise and exerting yourself again doesn't really come naturally, because innately, just speaking like throughout, your history and ancestry, you're you're inclined to just conserve all of your energy. You're inclined to sit on the couch, to be sedentary, because you never know when you have to like run from a predator. That's the way your brain works. So naturally, it's uncomfortable to work out. It's uncomfortable to exert yourself and exhaust your energy. So if you're using up all these brain calories throughout the day, it's no surprise that you're depleted. You've exhausted your brain throughout the day. That at the end of the day, when you are trying to make yourself do the thing that's uncomfortable and unnatural to you, that you talk yourself out of it. Duh. And so if willpower is a finite resource, then why don't we do the hardest thing and the thing that we're more likely to talk ourselves out of at the end of the day? Just knock it out at the beginning, and you're going to feel so much better. That's why that was the easiest way to get myself to do cold showers. Do it within the first 5 minutes of being conscious, and it's done. Mm-hmm. And I don't think about it by breakfast. I'm done with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the more I think about it, like I think just because I've created these habits, and now in hindsight, I can look back and think, okay, well, maybe that's why it works so well for me. But like during phase 1, whenever I was habitually doing a cold shower, and I had a little bit extra time in my morning routine, I was doing it after my workout. And then, that was kind of my trigger, was the end of my workout. Go up, do my cold shower, and then my reward was I got to eat breakfast. Just in hindsight, I'm able to see that now that we're really discussing the steps to really creating a solid habit. But what the last question that was posed here to us was, is there anything that you do in the evening to really set yourself up for a morning routine? And at this stage, I'll be interested to hear what you have to say, based on what our habits are.
I don't have a very strict evening routine. I think being
other than the bedtime, I would say.
Oh yeah, and that's by choice. I would rather be in bed earlier, but I think that if you're conservative at the start of your day and you manage your time wisely, you do the things that you need to do, that you need to do at the start of your day, you can be liberal at the end of the day, and you can really do whatever you want. I mean, we get to bed in a good time. I say I don't have a super strict evening routine, but I still pretty much do the same. Like, I have my reds and greens before I go to bed with magnesium, just because that helps me sleep better and helps my digestion. We'll watch TV or football towards the end of the day and just kind of relax. I try to stay off my phone for the last couple hours of the day. And that's a lot harder, I've learned, being away from Brett, because it's much easier to be off my phone when I have him here, and he's the one I want to talk to, where if he's not here, he's the one I want to talk to, so I have to talk to him on the phone. And then I've noticed that really affects my sleep quality, which makes it harder to get up in the morning. So it's kind of a cycle.
For sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who probably mindlessly scroll in bed, or close to their bedtime, or just stay up in general to watch shows, or just get on their phone and again, like, mindlessly scroll, and that is so detrimental to your sleep.
Have you ever seen that meme and it was like, oh, I can't fall asleep, I wonder if scrolling through my little tiny pocket device that has every answer to every world's problem will help me sleep?
Yeah, it just puts your mind into fight or flight mode. Like, whenever you're staring at that light in the darkness, and
it's never ending. You could scroll all throughout the night and you never would get to the bottom of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a bottomless pit for sure. So that is I'm sure that's something that a lot of people could eliminate from their nightly routine to help get to bed earlier, 1, and 2, get more quality sleep, so the morning doesn't suck so bad. Because I am so aware at this stage of my life how many hours of sleep and how many quality hours of sleep I've gotten. So that is a large contributing factor to my evenings affecting my mornings. But truthfully, no, there's not like one other than sleep, which is, again, a massive factor. But other than that, there's really nothing that I do to quote unquote set myself up for success. You could theoretically, like put your coffee maker on a timer or something like that.
Are going to get a new coffee maker, and that's going to be something that we do.
I actually kind of like it though. I kind of like making coffee in the morning.
You take a long time to do it, so I don't like it.
No, I don't.
You're pretty pokey.
I get it going, and then I take care of the dogs. You don't even see it happen. The coffee's already made by the time you're up.
Okay, but now that I am solo throughout the weeks and I do it, I get that shit moving. That's the first, I beeline. I do that ASAP, and then as soon as I get done feeding the dogs, the coffee's already done, and I can start mixing up the protein. But I do think it's really sweet that you do it, so I'm not, beggars can't be choosers.
Really dogging on me. No pun intended.
But yeah, that's really all I got.
Yeah, same.
I think at times, especially I find myself doing this on Sunday more often. I'll like write my to-do list for the following day, and that's really helpful for me. Just because I'm a list checker and I like knowing what's to come, and that would be one thing that I would do at the start of my day that I wouldn't have to do.
Yeah, I find it very beneficial to create a bunch of reminders in my phone, and I set it as a timer for an X time of the day. Like, I don't set it for when I wake up because that's just an immediate distraction. I've gotten to the point where I have a lot. I use reminders so much.
Yeah, you do.
I use reminders a lot, and it's a great way, one, for me to not forget something, and two, I can like set the reminder and I can forget it at least temporarily. It helps me create like a void in my mind, so that way I don't have to just try to remember something or get stressed out about forgetting something. It's just a great way for me to structure my time and not worry about things unnecessarily. So maybe that's something that if you don't already do, that you could start implementing, because that's kind of a super simple little life hack in my opinion.
Yeah, you can also do them recurring. So I have like weekly reminders of things that I just every Monday, every Wednesday, I have things that I need to do.
Yeah, I like reminders a lot better than calendar things, actually, because I'm not great about checking my calendar at the start of a day for like appointments and stuff. And then if you forget you have an appointment, it only notifies you 2 hours before. I'm sure there's probably settings that you can change to modify that. But that's something that I've personally had better luck with, was just reminders. But I think that's all we got on that. But thank you for that question submission.
Yeah, I like hearing those. Yeah, if you guys have any recommendations, or we want to be able to give you guys something that you want to listen to. So if there are specific things or topics that you'd like to hear from us, we're all ears. With the holidays coming up and New Year's, I know that this is a big seasonal time where maybe you've got something on your mind. You just want to hear, a little bit more insight or just a different perspective on it maybe. But, we want to be able to give you guys something that you want to listen to. So
and we're not trying to hide anything on our end. We're pretty much an open book with most things. So we're not going to try to hide life secrets to what's worked for us. So if you have other questions, by all means, fire away, and we'll try to get through them.
Unfortunately, the things not unfortunately, it's really no secret. Fortunately, the things that have worked for us are just really boring.
Very basic. Yeah.
Boring, basic, and repetitive.
It's just the things that people are unwilling to do over a long time horizon.
That just means that if we can do it, you can do it too, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Very achievable things.
All right, guys. We will talk to you next week. Have a great week.